How's it going, guys? Balder here, and I am in foggy San Diego. I'm currently at Lindbergh Field, also known as San Diego International Airport, and I'm going to be taking off runway 27. Alright, so I have no idea how the visibility is going to be. Usually in autumn, winter, things start to get a little cloudy in Southern California, so just keep that in mind. But yes, I do love taking off of runways, massive runways in these small planes, because I think that I rotated before I even hit the threshold. But either way, a few things about the airport. Parking lot, cargo, FedEx, along with North Ramp parking. There is there's the administration building, there's Terminal 1, this is the Marine Corps recruiting depot. And then, of course, this is Terminal 2 with the international arrivals as well. Those parking spots where that one Air France plane is, that's just parking space. And wow, it looks like it was just a cloud that was in the way. But anyway, let's take a look at those buildings right there. Those are actually practice buildings for firefighters. Over here you have Point Loma, pretty nice neighborhood, and not that expensive either. I've always wanted to move there, but plans have kind of changed. So yeah, welcome to San Diego. I'm going to give you a bit of a tour because recently scenery for Lindbergh Field, or KSAN, was recently released as paid DLC, or not paid DLC, but paid scenery add-ons for Flight Sim 2020. And I have to say, I am pretty impressed at what I see. Yeah, so I'm going to go over a few landmarks in San Diego. I'm going to loop back, and then I'll go in for a landing at Lindbergh Field, tell you my opinions. But first, let's fly over this naval air base. So, this is Coronado. This is one of the main naval bases. This is where you'll find a lot, and I mean quite a few. Quite a few aircraft carriers around here, and yes, I know I am flying into the clouds, so maybe I should do a little bit of that. Yeah, so let's go ahead and try to get past this cloud while I try to explain a few things, because this is kind of hampering my ability to give you a tour. So yeah. Basically, Coronado is its own island. People, including civilians, can live there, and they have a lot of places set up as such. It also has this absolutely kick-ass bridge that connects it to San Diego, and I'll see if I can find it. So yeah, this is still Coronado, I believe. Clouds are making it a little bit tricky. But yeah, okay, so there we go. And that right there is the land bridge, and I think I am going to decide to do a little bit of low flying downtown San Diego. If you're wondering if that beehive-looking skyscraper exists, yes it does. I had no idea what's in it. I'm guessing it's an office building. But there are a lot of offices, there are a lot of suites, there are hotels, you know, condominiums, apartments, a lot of things like that. But yeah, this is the Coronado Bridge. That'll take you directly to Coronado, or to San Diego if you landed there. Such as, if you were the president, then you would be landing at Coronado instead of San Diego. Especially since the runway in San Diego, needless to say, isn't the longest one. Though there are some untrue rumors or untrue myths about San Diego's runway. Things such as large aircraft cannot take off and land there. That is not true. you can actually land a lot of aircraft there. In fact, for years, British Airways flew a 747 through there, and before that, and well, after the fact, they decided to fly to the 777, which is still a massive freaking plane. But yes, this is a lot of these docks have military ships. A lot of these docks have cruise ships. There's also an aircraft carrier that serves as a museum now. I'm not sure which one it is, or even if it's modeled. But yeah, this is generally what you'll get. These are the San Diego dockyards, both civil and military. But yeah, I do have to admit, I am quite impressed at the scenery that we have. Granted, as you can tell, there are some errors. They look blocky close up. I have no idea why the fuck there's a tree in that ship, but I don't think it matters too much. Yes, I do believe that we are heading towards Imperial Beach, and over around in this area, that is where Tijuana is, I believe. Either that, or we are right effing there. Now, it doesn't look like it, but yeah, the proximity between Tijuana and San Diego is very noticeable. Yeah, I don't see any customs around here, so yeah, we must still be in there. Yeah, this definitely Imperial Beach. If I'm being perfectly honest, this area, which would be Imperial, Bonita, and Chula Vista, I'm not too knowledgeable in those areas. But needless to say, the graphics are in fact stunning, so I'm going to do a little bit more of a tour. And yeah, I can tell you right now that this is definitely not TJ. No offense to anyone who lives there, but I'm just not sure if this is Chula Vista or Bonita where I am. Either way, that's not too big of a deal, because after this, once I get back to altitude, we're going to go to El Cajon. Next onto our little tour. You can generally tell where Alright, so yeah, OCL3, that is not where I want to go. But yeah, El Cajon, you do have this place called Galepsy Field, or Galepsy Field. I never knew what the proper pronunciation of that was, but it's just one of the airports. There's also Montgomery Field. There's quite a few places, as well as Miramar, though that is a Marine... Yeah, it's a Marine base, Miramar. Yeah, pretty big place, pretty cool place, if you ask me as well. And yes, if I'm not mistaken, that is the freeway which will take us to the box, as I like to eloquently call it. But yeah, pretty big city, a lot of people live in it. Whenever someone thinks of California, they always think of Los Angeles, maybe San Francisco, and maybe Berkeley if you are the political type. But San Diego I believe, is the coolest city in California. I mean, this is the only city that I know of where Metallica and Stephen Hawking were able to get under the same roof. I'm talking Comic-Con, of course, which San Diego is very famous for. Also, according to Flight Sim Expo, it seems increasingly likely that we are going to be seeing, well, we're going to be seeing Flight Sim Expo in 2021 in San Diego, which is good because they have some very big convention centers. Second, I believe it's second only to Las Vegas, though I could be wrong about that. Yeah, so El Cajon, Santee, pretty cool place. Yeah, this looks so much like San Diego. Flying over it myself, I actually am impressed. Like, you know what? I probably shouldn't suck this game's dick every chance I get, but it's kind of hard not to. I mean, look at this stuff. Yeah, so one of the big problems with San Diego, as you could probably guess, is driving. Let's say that you live in this house that has a pool. Well, if you have a pool, I'm gonna take a wild guess that you probably work in downtown. That's where most of the businessmen are. That is going to be one crazy drive. And that's not even the craziest. People go out of county to work in San Diego as well. Don't ask me how they pull it off. I did it for, well, I was still in the same county as San Diego, but I did it for 4.5 years. And let me tell you, the trip is not nice. It's not nice on your car. It's not nice on your sleep schedule. It's generally something you want to avoid. Yeah, so yeah, that looks like Galepsy over there. Now, Galepsy is actually a private, not a private airport, but a small airport that is at least big enough to have private jets take off and land in it, which is different from, say, Montgomery Field. I don't remember ever seeing private jets take off and land there. But when I was living in El Cajon, I actually did see a Cessna 172 with a retractable landing gear. Now, you guys are going to crucify me for this, but I can't remember the official name for that type of aircraft. But yeah, it's a Cessna with a retractable landing gear. Looks odd. I'm not too big of a fan of it, but it looks interesting nonetheless. So yeah, past the mountains, Santee, El Cajon. Pretty cool places if you ask me. Probably costs a fortune to live on one of those hills. But one thing that should be mentioned is that in the case of San Diego, they really like getting their property tax collected. Which is why, if you ever look at a map of San Diego, you'll see that once the city gets into canyons, it'll incorporate them. So it looks like a giant tentacle monster if you're looking at a map of San Diego, just because they try to branch out into the canyons. Because, you know, that's where the money is. Who doesn't want to live in a canyon? No, I do. Yeah, don't know where my old house is. Sorry if that's what you were looking for. But, yeah, I am going to head back, get on track, and then I'm going to take a little bit of a tour of Balboa Park. And then later, take the 5 all the way up to Oceanside. Alright, so looks like things are good here. Should probably gain some altitude. Lost a little during this turn. Yeah, for the most part, this does look stunning. And the details are really good. Now, I'm pretty convinced that all they did was change the... I believe that all they really did was that they changed the immediate airport close to it, because the terrain does actually extend past this. I didn't include this in the recording, though I am going to be posting this in the video, but basically they have signs that you can only see, or they have signs that are incredibly specific, such as on buildings, billboards, stuff like that. I have no idea how they don't get in trouble for copyright and that stuff, but it's actually really cool. It looks like you're in San Diego. It doesn't even look digital. It doesn't look like you're in a video game. It just looks like it's the real thing. And I think that's the general purpose of these flights. I think that's probably just the general purpose of these terrains, is to make it look as realistic as possible. For Flight Simulator 2020, that seems like the winning formula as well. I remember hearing a question on the Flight Sim subreddit, smugly asking, it's like, well, you know, aside from really good graphics, what does Flight Sim 2020 have to offer? And I think the answer to that one is that I think people are prioritizing graphics over gameplay in terms of flight sims. And it's not like this is going to be forever. You're going to get some very realistic aircraft as well. This in of itself is pretty realistic. Not 100%, but still pretty good. But the big selling point is the very detailed world. Crazy detailed world that can only be achieved through satellite telemetry. Telemetry? Yeah, I think that's the right word. Yeah, once we get to back to San Diego, I'm going to show you some things that are fairly specific about the area near the airport, and then we'll start heading north, because there are some interesting things heading north as well. Of course, with this marine layer, it may just be a case where I have to, you know, take the 15, which is also pretty cool, but there are some landmarks that are kind of missing in that case. Because as you can guess, this is, I believe that is the 15. I can tell because those are bus lanes. And that freeway will take you to the more rural part, eventually taking you to Riverside County. If you stay on the 5, that'll take you to Orange and Los Angeles County afterwards. I love seeing what that bus did. It like immediately did a 180 without turning. Oh, I love the small little nitpicky details about this game. And they're fun. Anyway, I need to grow taller. Alright, so over here, this area is Balboa Park. It has quite a few things, including the San Diego Zoo is one of them. Several tea gardens. Nurseries with rare plants, stuff like that. But yeah, Balboa Park is massive and has a lot of things to do there. And should I slow flight it? Yeah, I'll say why not. Alright, Alright, there we go. So yeah, Balboa Park, I do believe that area in particular is under construction. That area would be North Park, by the way. North of the park, putting two and two together. Alright, so one big disadvantage I will say that the 172 has is the fact that you cannot see where you're turning towards, which can be an inconvenience at best and dangerous at worst. That's not to say that planes with lower wings don't have problems either. They most certainly do. But it's always something worth noting. Whoa, okay. That just happened. Yeah, for some reason, as of late, my track IR has really been acting up. Yeah, Balboa Park is massive. It's a lot like Central Park in New York, where you have just a fuck ton of metropolis, and then all of a sudden there's just this green-ass park in the middle of nowhere. Alright, so I believe there are some Indian temples in Balboa Park. Don't quote me on that. But I'm going to go ahead and do a slight approach here. Slip it. That is the San Diego Air and Space Museum. It actually has one of the Apollo landers on display, so if you're ever in town, you should definitely check that out. So these avenues are pretty close to the runway, and that means that aircraft have to fly especially close to them in order to get them up and running. But as you can tell, things are really detailed the closer you get to it. Yeah, Freeway is accurate. Those are parking garages over there. And if I'm flying low, it's for a very good reason. I have no intention of landing at San Diego. Instead, I'm going to go up the Pacific Highway a little bit. But yeah, parking spots are real. This is what you'd actually get. That sign is legitimate. So if you're ever in a motorcycle accident, maybe you should take a look at that. There's some hangars, parking garages, that's the general aviation area. Big parking complex right there, that's where you'll get your car rentals. Employee parking as well. And yeah, that is San Diego. This is actually incredibly detailed. So, yeah, it already gets my letter of recommendation from a fellow San Diego resident. So, moving on, we are going to go climb in altitude, of course. Not much in this area to see. Mostly just businesses, hotels, stuff like that. Airport hotels for pilots and businessmen who have to stay overnight. You know, that kind of thing. So with that said, what do we get moving up the 5? Well, you get a lot of estuaries, for sure. You also get a Mormon temple. I kid you not. They have a Mormon temple just off the 5, and it looks like a Disney princess castle that a lot of people say. And, you know, not to make fun of Mormons, I'm just making fun of the temples. Right, so this area, generally high-end, not too familiar with it, per se. Yeah, if we were to take the, whoa, hello. Lag. Yeah, so I am trying to see if I can find that freeway. Of course, I think I may have taken the wrong turn and ended up in the Pacific Highway, which is actually more scenic, so yeah. Not going up the 5. We are taking the other routes. This is what we call the Scenic Route. If you ever want to go from North County all the way to San Diego. Also going to gain some altitude here because things start to get a lot more hilly the further north you go. You know, fault lines and stuff like that. Actually, you know what? San Diego doesn't have a lot of fault lines. Generally, when we feel an earthquake, it's because Los Angeles had an earthquake. Actually, no, that might actually be the 5th. I digress, though. Because, regardless, this will still take me to the same destination. No, not LA. Not planning on doing any of that crap. Oh, and I think I may have been 500 feet above the ground. Yeah, pretty high-end towns over there. Really cool. And, oh, yes, there it is. I don't know how well you can see it. Let's see if we can get a good look at it. Definitely looks a little jagged from what I could tell. Not too surprised. Yeah, this thing over here that that looks like it belongs in Disneyland, that is a Mormon temple. And it's hands down one of the most head-turning things you could ever see while driving up this freeway, because otherwise it does get kind of, not necessarily boring, but it's definitely the most noteworthy, I should say. Alright, so at this point I don't know when this ends. And the other towns begin. I do believe up there is Del Mar, if we haven't passed it already. Del Mar is a very cool, oh, kind of like a beach town, a lot of sailing, a lot of surfing, just people having a good time. Or I could have passed it, and that is Cardiff by the Sea. Don't think it's Carlsbad, though. Someone will probably correct me on that one. Granted, this does make me, this does kind of compel me to try flying around the Salt Lake Valley, because that I'm more familiar with, and it might be more interesting, who knows. But yeah. As you could guess, the further from San Diego you get, the more suburban it becomes, and the more rural it becomes. In fact, there are quite a few places that act as nature reserves. Either the zoning laws prevent too many houses from being built there, or, like in this area, it is completely 100% reserved for nature. And those hikes are actually pretty cool. It's a gentle walk. In North County, things get a lot more, what's the best way of putting it, a lot more mountainy. So the hikes are a little bit more strenuous, but I can't really complain about that. Alright, so... Geez, that does look real. Not sure why that semi-truck is in the suburbs, but looks real to me. Okay, so... Moving on, I am kind of curious as to what this area is. It looks like a track and field, be it a pretty big one. So, let's take a look. That looks interesting. It almost looks like a resort. Or a racetrack, one of the two. I have no idea what that is. All I know is that we're heading up the coast. KRCQ is Carlsbad Airport, which is where we're heading. The whole area of Carlsbad and Vista is actually pretty interesting. Carlsbad, Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, those kinds of areas. So KRCQ is it's not big enough to have passenger service. It used to with United Airlines. But it is definitely big enough to have private jets, pretty big traffic, an air traffic control tower. Basically a lot of things. So... decision time. Am I going to... fly through Escondido, or am I going to take the 76 to the more rural Bonsall area? I think I'm going to head to the more rural Bonsall area, because that has a small little airport that I can land in, or land at. And then we could call it good. Plus, there are other things I do want to show you. Alright, so this is Carlsbad. Pretty I keep saying it, but pretty high-end places. But not all of Carlsbad is high-end, though there are a lot of professional businesses, labs, stuff like that you would find. And yeah, if you're wondering about those mountains over there, that would have a lot of nature reserves, plus a few people living in on top of those mountains. Don't ask me how much those go for. Yeah, this, it's pretty good. Yeah, so once we get past all this, we'd be heading towards the airport. Airport, as I mentioned, pretty busy, but at least it has a control tower. Yeah, the closer, further north you go in, the more, I don't want to say rural, but definitely the more suburban it gets. See, there aren't exactly a lot of businesses in this area. There are, don't get me wrong, but mostly this is residential zoning with a few businesses such as warehouses, distribution centers, stuff like that. Kind of a... Oh yes, and tech buildings, you know. The rent here is cheaper than in San Diego, so why not take advantage of it? After all, it's actually a pretty good idea because the city is expensive. Even places like Chula Vista, which is unfairly disregarded as being a rundown ghetto neighborhood, it's actually pretty nice to be in. A lot of cool places, pretty nice people. Definitely cheaper than the rest of San Diego, but that doesn't prevent it from being expensive. Yeah, so that be Palomar Airport. And that's where you'll get most of your businesses, warehouses, labs, office buildings, stuff like that. Also, okay. So we got through that. That is a natural gas power plant. I think it might actually be decommissioned. Might no longer be active. Because a lot of power plants, especially the fossil fuel power plants, have started going the way of dinosaurs. Pun not intended. I just realized that. But yeah. Needless to say, a lot of it is going into renewables, some of it going into natural gas, none of it going into nuclear because for some reason Americans are afraid of that stuff. But at this point, we are now in Oceanside. The most noteworthy thing about Oceanside, well, the two noteworthy things. One, Camp Pendleton is just north of Oceanside. A big, and I mean big-ass marine base, filled with training grounds, an air base, gunnery ranges, along with some other civilian things that I can't exactly say, not because I have some gag order, but because I honestly don't know. I've never worked at Pendleton, though it may certainly be an option sometime down the road. The other thing about Oceanside is that this is where the off-base scenes in Top Gun were filmed. So yes, with all the homoerotic beach scenes, yep, came from Oceanside. That right over there is their long pier, kind of like a landmark of Oceanside. And this street in particular, yeah, that street, no, those are the train tracks, sorry. Oh yeah, I'm flying over the street. So, the street beneath me is actually its main street, and that's where you're going to get a lot of very quaint businesses, stuff like that. So, absolutely cool, if you ask me. Now, this isn't the entirety of the Oceanside. Despite its name, there are actually quite a few places where you can, where it's not connected to the ocean. We're still in Oceanside. All this stuff right here is Oceanside. In fact, tells you right there, it's the Oceanside Pirates. Alright, so from here, I'm going to get a little bit more in altitude because I'm going to be trying to match the airport elevation of where I'm inevitably going to land, which is also a short runway, so I don't want to screw it up. Alright, cool. Yeah, I'm not too picky about the climb rates. I don't need to get there at such a quick pace. I just need to follow this river, which I believe is the San Luis Rey, but correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, all this stuff, still Oceanside. Over there, that is Pendleton, which, as you can tell, has a ton of facilities. It's like an entire city in of itself. Isn't just military, has civilian sectors as well, though working for the military, obviously. But further out east, we are going to see Bonsall. Now, this area over here is generally regarded as Bonsall, which is going to have a lot of vineyards, horse breeders, stuff like that. Farmers. This is where things, even though they are still pretty suburban, you can tell that things are becoming more sparsely populated. So this is kind of the area where you'll have horses and whatnot. Other types of livestock. Also, on average, they're pretty damn friendly, so I did not want to do that. Whatever. I'm neglecting the tour, so let's see where we're gonna go. So, yeah, from over here, we are pretty much in, I don't want to call it the boonies, but it's kind of an appropriate name. There we go. Right, so is there a lot that I can say about Bonsall? Not entirely. It did have a pretty nasty brush fire that knocked out a few houses, but they were able to get a hold of that blaze pretty quickly. You can also tell there's a lot of farming, a lot of produce, a lot of crops. Same thing could be said about Vista, which is over that way. In fact, I think that might be Vista over there. Generally in the same area, this is what you'll get, this is what you'll see. You'll see a lot of farmlands, a lot of vineyards. This is where a lot of avocados are produced, a lot of strawberries, a lot of grapes for wine. Definitely the place you want to go if you're looking for something fresh. Oranges, apricots. In fact, there are a lot of people who have these groves on their own property. They could just have, oh hey, look, we got ourselves an orange tree. Or we have this big-ass land, let's get ourselves an orange tree, or a lemon tree, or an avocado tree, something like that. Citrus tends to grow well in places where it barely gets below freezing. Once it gets below freezing, citric fruits tend to succumb to frostbite, so generally farmers have to be careful during the winter time and keep track of the weather unless they want to have, issues going from there on out. How they protect from that, I'm not too entirely sure. but they do have their ways. Plus, a crop failure is not going to spell end for a tree. It will grow back come, well, depending on the fruit, but usually a lot of these fruits grow year-round, so even then, it's not too big of a deal. Alright, so, let's see. Alright, so over here, that goes to a pretty long canyon, all the way to a cool-ass bridge, which I might tour later on. But we're going to go up this road, up to a town. The town is called Fallbrook. It has its own little airport, and this is about the northmost of northern San Diego County. Past that, you get to Riverside. Also need to drop 100 feet, 200 feet. And I need to locate the airport. I'm not the most familiar with this area, but I have flown over it a few times, and I have landed at the airport several times. It is a very quaint town. Very small, relatively small town. As you can tell, things are pretty rural in these neighborhoods. Going into town, they become a little bit more populated. But if you're wondering, no, I'm not going to fly the pattern altitude, or I'm not going to land in pattern. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to fly over the town, and then I am going to teardrop into the airport, which also happens to be a short field airport, so those things are always fun. But now would be a good time to tell you how to land in a short field, because those things they aren't exactly tricky, but they can be nerve-wracking. Plus, if you slam on the brakes hard, then you're going to wear out your brake pads. So short fields aren't exactly airplane friendly. They just sometimes happen to be the only thing they can it just sometimes happen to be the only option. So over here you have country clubs, golf courses, stuff like that. And another country club right about here. We're going to be flying over that. Doesn't look like it's very well detailed, but not too bad. That is the airport in of itself. Yeah, instead of doing touch and goes, my instructor would have me do land and goes, which is okay, it works. A bunch of houses over there. And then the town. Obviously, this is Main Street for Fallbrook. If you're wondering if Main Street in Fallbrook is impressive, not so well. Actually, it is, just not from an aerial view. Hardly from an aerial view. Yeah, past that is Pendleton. In fact, it could be easy to fly into the wrong airspace, because this right here is Pendleton's airstrip. That's Fallbrook. So if you make the wrong turn, you're going to have some explaining to do with not only the Marines, but the FAA. Probably have to write an incident report, explain your circumstances as to why an F-18 had to intercept you. Not fun stuff. Let's go ahead and cut our power a little bit. I'm going to apply flaps. apply another notch of flaps, and thank you, rotating airport beacon, to tell me where the runway is. Yeah, so I have 2 notches of flaps. I'm going to be adding a 3 here as well. Alright, and of course, you can never forget about the landing lights. Alright, so I'm heading in a little fast. I don't see the PAPI. I don't even know if this runway has a PAPI. No idea what the lights are on either. All right. Alright, so if you're wondering why I had to slam on the brakes, it's because I was trying to retract the flaps. I might need to get my... that's not good. But yeah, so I do need to retract the flaps, unfortunately, for this situation. And for some reason my joystick did not want to retract the flaps. I think one of my buttons is failing. Thank you, Saytech. But yeah, the way that you do it is that you generally land normally on a short field, and then once you land on the short field, you will... Once you land on the short field, you will be able to, you know, brake pretty easily, but you need to retract the flaps before you brake, so that you have more braking power. I was unable to do that because stupid controls, but still did the trick. Yeah, so let's go ahead and turn here, turn here. I believe this is where we go, because I think the FBO is somewhere down there. If not, if there even is an FBO, not too sure about that. Oh, the other thing, and this is going to suck. Cars and planes have to share the road. Or they have to share the taxiway in certain points. Probably not over there. Guess what, pal? I'm not moving. In fact, if anything, I am going to go here. And if I clip your van, that's on you. I'm going to tell the FAA that's all your fault. But oop, downhill we go. Those look like hangars, not an FBO. But I could be wrong. Instead, what I shall do is that I will do a 180. Increase the throttle since we're going uphill. Alright, parking brake is set. So, landing light off, strobe light off, pitot off, nav off, leave beacon on for now, avionics off. Cool. Alright, so, that was a pretty long flight, but definitely a satisfying flight. So, we'll have to revisit that as well, and to see other textured airports as time goes on. But for now, in the spirit of the fact that it is Halloween, I want to leave you guys with a bit of a gift. An extra thing that I'm going to do with landing. That's right. I'm going to be doing the Halloween landing challenge.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Alright, so I take it that is the runway. And that is the Cessna 152. And I have the controls. Cool. Doesn't have any lighting on it. So that might be a slight problem. Things are getting a little spooky here. Whoa. Okay, well that just happened. Alright, so let's get in our notch of flaps. Let's, has my attitude indicator failed? Turn coordinator hasn't. Don't know about my altimeter, it doesn't tell me. Though it does seem pretty static, so if I had to guess, maybe that's not working. Alright, second notch of flaps. Anyway, I guess while we're doing this, I might as well tell you we are in Transylvania. Transylvania is part of Romania, and this is where all the spooky, scary myths about vampires and whatnot come from. Now, I do believe that Transylvania is where Vlad the Impaler originated from, or reigned. I'm not 100% sure about that. What I can tell you, though, is that there are quite a few vampire bats that roam the night and drink blood. What the vampire bats will do is that they will bite into you. Their teeth and saliva are coated with an anesthetic, so you won't even feel the puncture. Then from there, they'll drink the blood, move away, and then you'll wake up with with two fangs in your neck, wondering what the fuck is going on. Needless to say, if you are a medieval peasant, that must be very spooky. The same thing also happens to cattle. In fact, I think that vampire bats prefer going after cows more than they prefer going after humans. Plus, living in a house as opposed to a barn, it might be harder for a bat to get in. But yeah, for the most part, bats in Europe aren't nearly as scary as bats in North America. Bats in North America have rabies, so they're the ones you'll have to watch out for. But even then, a bite from a bat is incredibly rare. They're pretty harmless in general. Alright, so we are heading towards this... I don't even know what this is. Is this a makeshift landing strip in the middle of Transylvania? I mean, sure, why not? I'm not against anything like that. Alright, I see the landing mark. I'm gonna see if I can touch down on that. Oh, those are jack-o'-lanterns, and I ballooned a little bit too much. Same as before, flaps out. Slam on the brakes. Yeah, those are freaking jack-o'-lanterns. 708,000. I'm 8,000th place. Go me. But let's take a look. So, 250 feet per minute. That doesn't sound right. Landing precision, 190 feet. Ground roll, 28 feet. So, yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Happy Halloween, because as we all know, this year is terrifying. But, nonetheless, hope you enjoyed. And as always, you have a nice day.